Life is unfair. I don't know who's taught people that life is fair. I don't understand why people walk around with this idea that by existing, they deserve something or life is supposed to take it easy on them. Things suck for a lot of people. You still have to live. And within that context, you have to find your space, your lane, what you're good at. Our country's not built for us. Things are not going to always go your way. When you fall, get back up. You can cry for a little bit, but you're still going to have to dry those tears and move forward. And realistically, nobody cares because everybody else is dealing with their own shit too. I was blessed to come from a community that never coddled us because it was a matter of survival for us. We did not have the privilege of complaining, of whining, of sitting down and waiting for things to change. You had to move forward.
Hello and welcome to the Randall Osché Podcast, where honest conversations take the lead. Each week, we sit down with entrepreneurs, artists, thinkers, and change makers to unpack how they got from there to here and what they learned along the way. Real stories, no filters, lessons earned through experience. So you can take what's useful and leave the rest. Whether you're tuning in during your commute, a workout, or while making dinner, we're glad you're here. So take a seat, relax, grab a cup of tea, and join in the conversation. Now, let's get into this week's episode.
Erick Prince, founder of Minority Nomad and travel photographer. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. For the people that don't know you yet, why don't you go ahead and take a quick moment, introduce yourself, and we'll get it started from there.
All right. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here. And thanks for the audience for listening or watching. My name is Erick Prince, founder of minoritynomad.com. I am a travel journalist, specifically a photographer. I've been traveling around the world for about 15, 16 years as a civilian. But prior to that, I was in the U.S. military for 10 and a half years, where I was also traveling the world. And my goal is to make the world a little bit better than I found it.
I love that. Very noble of you.
It's self-preservation, my friend.
You and me both. I was going to ask, I was doing a bit of research beforehand, obviously, like looking at your website, your socials, your YouTube channel, which we'll circle back to because I have questions about that. You've been at that for 10 years. But let's go way back. Let's go to how you decided to go into the military. Then once you left the military after 10 and a half years, how did you become this, in this nomad space?
Well, the decision to join the military was just practical at the time. So I grew up in Cleveland in the 90s, 80s and 90s. And I think people forget how young the internet is. So for us growing up in the 80s and 90s, our primary source of information was mainstream media or things like National Geographic, The Watchtower, those Reader's Digest. That was our primary source of the world outside of where we grew up. And for me, for some reason, I gravitated towards global cultures, global identity, different peoples. I always wanted to discover more because, in Cleveland, I knew Cleveland. To this day, I know Cleveland. I go back to Cleveland. It's something ingrained in me. It is who I am. So it doesn't necessarily excite me. It doesn't spark my interest as much as going to a random village in Cambodia, for example. So as a kid, it was either I was going to go to law school or I was going to join the military, pretty much. And I watched Top Gun. I was one of those weird kids that thought the entire military was Top Gun. And Top Gun was the coolest movie I had ever seen in my life. So I decided, okay, well, I'll go to the military, become a fighter pilot. Well, I ended up having a kid in high school. And you can't go to the Air Force Academy as a single parent. Back then, anyway, I believe it's changed now. So the recruiter called me and he said, hey, you're in JROTC, you're top of your class. You can join the Air Force. You can do 4 years and then you can go be a fighter pilot. And I'm like, perfect. So this is end of 2000. I joined the U.S. Air Force January 10th of 2001, right before 9/11. It was a very different military then. So I joined the military primarily to take care of my son and to get an education and then become a fighter pilot. 9/11 changed that and my career went entirely different direction. I did 10 and a half years and being in the war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan on multiple tours, at the time I didn't know the impact that was having on me as a person. And it was at around 7 years I realized this wasn't for me anymore. So I started to put together a plan to transition away from the military, which is what I did at 10 and a half years. I left the military, went back to college, and I still wanted to give back. I wanted to give back to low-income kids because I would go back to Cleveland and talk to these kids at my old JROTC program, old mock trial programs. And these kids had no idea what the world was like. At that point, I had gone to around 20 countries and had seen what life was like outside of the United States. And to speak to these kids in Cleveland, it was almost like a lie to them. They could not process what it was like in Japan, or what it was like in Germany, or what it was like in South Africa. They could not process that because back then, we didn't have social media. The internet was still relatively new. And a lot of these kids didn't know anybody, like, one touch, who had been abroad. So for me coming back, I realized that there's a massive gap in knowledge within my community. And that's largely because we aren't seen. So I ended up starting a nonprofit foundation, which we had the aimed goal of taking low-income kids and teaching them about travel and photography, the two things that I was the most passionate about. And that ended up turning into this career that I have today.
That's amazing. So many areas that I want to dive into there. So to the audience, sorry if I fumble this one and miss a few follow-ups there. But I mean, one of the reasons I enjoy doing the podcast is you and I didn't really know each other before this, but I'm from Western Pennsylvania.
Oh no. You should have led with that. Oh no.
But I lived in Pittsburgh for a decade. I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania, sort of like southeast of Erie. And
I know it well.
That part of the world is roughly the same, I would think. Yeah. I think some of what you're saying for similar reasons but different resonates with me because you're a little bit older than me. I graduated high school 2003.
Yeah, a few years. Yeah, I'm 42 now.
Yeah, I guess same generation then. But the internet, we grew up on both sides of it, with it and without it.
Yep.
The generation after us knows no world without cell phones, social media, emailing, etc. But where I grew up, I didn't understand that there was a world outside of my small town in Western Pennsylvania. I've talked about it on other podcasts before. I didn't know what a white collar job was because I was from a factory town. And factory, that's what people did. That's what the parents of the kids that played sports
Ohio,
did.
Pennsylvania. Everybody was in blue collar jobs.
White collar jobs to me, there was a couple people that were probably quote unquote wealthy in the area, or we thought they were because they weren't in a factory, but they were the, popular insurance salesman or something like that, right? Or the handful of financial advisors in town, something like that. But there weren't any office buildings or skyscrapers or anything like that. And I think one of the things that limits, I guess I'd like to get your opinion on this. In my experience, one of the things that limits growth and hinders your potential is not having exposure to those inputs. And I think the more exposure to those inputs you have, you don't know you can achieve something if you don't know that thing exists.
When you haven't seen somebody that looks like you, I think representation, I think it's been commercialized, it's been commoditized, it's been hijacked. You have to be able to see yourself in these positions, these places. And too often, especially growing up in our generation, we didn't necessarily see people like us who were in these positions of power. Every police officer growing up was white. Every teacher growing up was white. Every caseworker was white. Every judge was white. For the most part, those white collar jobs, most of those people were white. And you have the odd African American, Latino here and there, but for the most part, growing up in Ohio, people in those positions of power and change and influence were white. So for little black kids growing up, we didn't have any person to look up to yet, right? Now this new generation has thousands upon thousands of people they can look at who look like them, who speak like them, where the space is opened up. But when we were coming up, we didn't have those things. And that's the thing about representation. It's so important. It doesn't mean that we have to just put people in positions because of the color of their skin or their gender or their sexuality. It's that when these people are in these positions, we should highlight them to people from their communities in an effort to ensure that people understand that these opportunities are out there for everybody if you're able to put in the work and the time. Of course, yeah, I say that with the caveat that there's systemic barriers for a lot of people in a lot of places. But for the most part, if we're pretending we live in an equal world, all these jobs or opportunities should be open to everybody of ability.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you think of your journey and growing up and lack of representation, how did you think that benefited you or hindered you, depending on how you want to look at that?
You know what? I grew up in a family of creatives, of musicians, of chefs, of blue-collar workers. My grandfather was a farmer and a welder. My mother was a chef. My father was a musician. My sister owns her own hair business, several kids. So we grew up where the world is what it is. All you have control over is what you do. And you have to make the best way that you can with the circumstances that you have. And I was never taught. You never heard in my family, that's unfair. Like, you get slapped upside the head for saying something like, no, who cares? That's life. Life is unfair. I don't know who's taught people that life is fair. I don't understand why people walk around with this idea that by existing, they deserve something or life is supposed to take it easy on them. Things suck for a lot of people. You still have to live. And within that context, you have to find your space, your lane, what you're good at, your ability. What can you do? And it's okay to, wash clothes for a living. It's okay to be a line cook for a living. It's okay to be a welder for a living. And you can have a good life. For one thing that I picked up on traveling around the world, and I thought this was just us, but it's not. Everybody wants three things: food, family, and faith. That is it. That is the foundation of humanity around the world. If you don't mess with people's food, family, or faith, you're fine. You can pretty much do whatever you want. And when you interact with people from Pennsylvania, from Ohio, from Cambodia, from Germany, the bonds that tie us all fall underneath those things: food, family, and faith. So for me growing up, not seeing representation, it didn't matter to me because I came from a community, from a family, a background that was steep in tragedy and pain. We get it. We were taught very early on that life is not fair. Our country's not built for us. Things are not going to always go your way. When you fall, get back up. You can cry for a little bit, but you're still going to have to dry those tears and move forward. And realistically, nobody cares because everybody else is dealing with their own shit too. So I was blessed to come from a community that never coddled us because it was a matter of survival for us. We didn't have the privilege. We did not have the privilege of complaining, of whining, of sitting down and waiting for things to change. You had to move forward. And I think that has been my biggest gift and superpower. I'm not the most talented at anything, but I outwork almost everybody I know because I have to. I have no choice. That's my only gift. That's the only thing I can control is how hard I work. I can't control how you see my writing. I can't control how brands see my worth. I can't control, who finds me physically attractive. All I can control is how hard I study, how many articles I write, how many pictures I send out, how often I go to the gym, how well I try to sleep and eat, how I treat other people. Those are things that are within my power. So my background is not about a lack of representation for me. It's about those skills that I was given to survive in the real world as opposed to the digital world that a lot of people are living in now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, preach. I'm just here listening, soaking this up. That's
but I'm
awesome.
sure it's the same for you. Like, we grew up basically in the same place. Like,
yeah.
You remember that it was ugly back then. Like, you said something crazy to somebody at school or running around Pittsburgh and you got punched in the mouth. That's life, man.
Yeah, I think that there's two parts to that. I think it's one in the like time frame in which we grew up, and also like where we grew up. Like I think that's a pretty gritty area of the country where like you would get punched in the mouth for saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, and in other areas they would let that slide, or you'd get it handled with like kid gloves. But I've been in some like corporate settings where people, I don't think they know who they're talking to sometimes. Just like
yeah, like this.
We can have a professional conversation, but like you cross that line, I don't care.
Come off.
I don't know. I don't care who's in what kind of suit, right? Like we're adults here, and adults can handle things in an adult way sometimes. So you be careful of the words that come out of your mouth next. Absolutely. I've had a few experiences like that. They didn't end poorly, thank goodness. But like I think people just forget themselves sometimes. Yeah. I think like the way I frame that question is because as a positive or a negative, I think that I've evolved myself to look at potentially negative situations as opportunities, right? It's an opportunity to learn, to grow, to get better, to pivot. And I love how you answered the question because that was your superpower, right? Like I was thinking that before you even said it. Like the environment that you grew up in cultivated who the person you are today and gave you the tools that put you in the position to do what you're doing and do it successfully. And then to help others, show them the path forward as well, and to show them that the world's bigger than just, Cleveland, Ohio.
And it's not reinventing the wheel, man. Like this isn't something I created, or like I'm literally just parroting what I was taught, what I was raised to believe. We've seen this written in Stoicism. We've seen extreme ownership. I love that book by Jocko Willink. What did I do to cause this? Or what did I not do to achieve the result that I wanted to achieve? Is I'm always trying to make future me proud. And I'm trying to be a hero to a 13-year-old version of myself. Like that is my goal, my push, my passion, is because I know that every single day we're running out of tomorrows. And people really carry themselves as if we're immortal. And during the war, I saw so many guys not only lose their lives, but be hurt in a way that people just can't fathom until you've seen war, until you've seen poverty. I'm not talking I'm in the hood with brand new Jordans and an iPhone poverty. I'm talking I got to sell this bag of rice for my family to eat kind of poverty. Once you've experienced that, it puts everything else into perspective in life, because I would say this, in the U.S., my God, we are coddled. We are shielded from reality in so many ways that it breaks my heart when I talk to a lot of us who have not had the opportunity to go abroad, to spend some time in other places, to interact with other peoples and see the circumstances that other people are living in, and not just living in, but thriving in, who are cultivating community in, who are growing and doing amazing creative things in, when we have so many opportunities back home. So I think, we're not reinventing the wheel. This is theory or logic that's been run around for generations. I just think it's all coming back into fashion now, because people are seeing how we've gone off track in a lot of ways as a species. I'll have to say, I feel like we've gotten so soft. We can't take pain. We can't endure. And I'm afraid. I'm really afraid for like my son's generation who have not been punched in the mouth. And, and I'm not just talking from a physical standpoint. I'm like, you have to learn how to take an L. That's growth. That's life. You have to take a loss. That's how toddlers learn how to walk. They fall a lot. And, as we get older and older and older, it feels like people run away from that pain, which ends up causing people to stop growing. And that's scary.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I think that where we grew up, we took L's. Right? Like that was the nature of the beast for like the location of where you grew up, right? That was disadvantaged for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. So there wasn't an option. I come from a small town, rural Pennsylvania. When I talk about not being exposed to certain things, it's probably from like a socioeconomic standpoint. Mm-hmm. And like somebody growing up in New York City that their parents made the same amount of money as my parents did, that person would have been exposed to more things. They would have had more opportunities because they had more inputs coming into them, right? Mm-hmm. I wasn't exposed to those things. But like getting back to the L's, that was just the nature of the beast for where we were and where we grew up. But speaking from other folks from a higher socioeconomic like standpoint, privileged class, they paid to not take L's. And so they never learned these lessons. I think that's where it comes to two parts for me is one, in our location and era, but even our location era isn't the same for every person that like is of our age.
Oh, yeah.
Because some people's parents could afford for them not to take L's. And so they've never gotten slapped in the face, literally or figuratively, and they just go around life thinking that this is how they are, which brings me to one of my questions I had in preparing for this. I was reading one of your blog posts of like, I think the top 11 questions that people ask you about travel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, I don't know if you remember your answer to this, but the question was, why do Americans complain so much? I got a good laugh when I read this.
I think it was probably something about, ooh, goodness. I think it was because we're soft. I think it goes back to this thing.
You said because we are entitled assholes.
We really are soft. And I used to be very aggressive with this, going after Americans again. And I think, that's the greatest form of patriotism is you got to call us out, man. We are not perfect. I earned the right to be critical of us. I earned it. In blood, sweat, and tears, lost sleep, PTSD, I've earned them. So when I say we're entitled assholes, we have been presented this privileged class arrogance that we don't actually own. If you're broke in America, you are not a privileged person necessarily in America. I think the number is off. If you make over $35,000 a year, you're in the top 1% globally. 35,000 US, I believe the number might be off. I remember I looked it up a couple of years ago. It was still around 35.
That sounds about right.
So if you make, that is nothing in the U.S. That is nothing. In the States, most people have homes. Most people have a high level of education by global standards, which is why somebody who graduated high school can come to Thailand and teach English tomorrow. You could just show up and teach English with a high school diploma in Thailand. We have clean water. Well, relatively clean if you're not in Flint, I suppose. We have safety and security. And this is from a global perspective. Anybody who's watching this, I'm talking about from a global perspective. We have to look at things bigger. So we walk around with this, I exist, so I deserve this. That's not how the world works. That's not how life ever works. And unfortunately, I see so many people who come abroad and they find out really, really quick. You have no rights in Russia. You have no rights in Poland. You have no rights in Kenya. You have no rights in Mexico. You have rights kind of in America. And a lot of that comes from people like our politicians and our leadership who drill it in our head. We're the best country in the world. And, we don't do anything wrong and we're always right and we're great at everything. And people eat that up because it feels good. I would say the funny thing about living in Thailand, I've lived in Thailand for 12 years. And I say living in Thailand is like what we imagine being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, big-titty white girl in America is. It's you go in a club, everybody wants you. People love you. They treat you with respect. You automatically get access to things that you didn't have access to before. People look out. They protect you. That's what it's like living abroad in so many ways as an American. And for so many people, that could be intoxicating. In America, as a black man, I'm not treated that way. I'm treated with suspicion in a lot of places. It's delusional that people think police brutality isn't still a thing. So a lot of us go abroad and we go to these places that cater to us. They cater to our tourist dollars. They cater to our passport. That privilege seeps out a little bit. And it's dangerous. It's very dangerous because that privilege is an illusion. There are people with real privilege. Billionaires have very real privilege. White men of a certain age in a lot of places have built-in privilege. Muscular black men in places have privilege. But a lot of times we carry ourselves with privilege that we do not have, and it puts us in a position where we could be taken advantage of, abused, and oftentimes hurt. Yep. So, back to that question, we are entitled assholes, but I do believe we have the capacity to do better and help a lot more people by using that privilege that we do have to help as many people and educate as many people as possible.
So my sister has this quote. She always says it. It is by Maya Angelou, because I just looked it up. The full quote is, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
Do better. You know better, you do better.
It's excusable to me that, if somebody makes a mistake because they didn't know better.
Mm-hmm. Ignorance is fine. It's okay to be ignorant. We're all ignorant in some way. It's okay to be ignorant. It's when you realize or you're told or you're shown you're wrong, that's when your character is exposed.
I think America is I don't want to say great because I think there's a connotation with that. But I think there's a lot of good things about America, but we also can improve a lot. And I think one of the strengths of character of an individual or a nation is in recognizing where you're deficient and where you can improve at, right? It's like the saying about, you know, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're sitting around the boardroom table and you think that you're a top dog, you're either one, mistaken, or two, you're not pushing yourself hard enough to improve and you're therefore in the wrong room. And I think one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy is traditional education in the United States. And I'll say traditional in the fact of, like, you know, going to school from kindergarten to, you know, high school and then graduating and then maybe going to community college or university to get advanced degrees. And then, like, from soup to nuts, that whole process irritates me. I'm pro education, public library, free books. That's education, right? There's probably a higher ROI on that than going to some 4-year colleges in the United States. But I read a book by Adam Grant called Hidden Potential. And in the book, he talks about how Finland, I think in the 70s, on the global tests, they were the worst educated, right, on some scale. And then Finland made a deliberate decision to fix that problem. And now they're like one of the best educated nations in school, or in the top 5 globally for whatever, however they measure that. And they did things differently, right? It's been a few years since I read the book, but one of the things was they recognized that, say, if students were in my school system, school district, 1st through 5th grade, you had the same teacher for all subjects, right? And then 6th through 12th grade, you went to a period schedule where every period was different class with a different teacher. But in Finland, they recognized that if you're able to be with the same teacher longer, you get a higher benefit of that in future years. So if, like, say you get taught English, say in 6th grade by one teacher, English by a different teacher in 7th grade, and then the like same thing, different teacher for the same subject, 8th grade, you're going to learn, but you're not going to learn as much if you had the same teacher 6th through 8th grade for English, right? You would get a higher benefit of that. They also invested in their teachers where they had higher standards and they rewarded them financially for meeting those higher standards. So they did these things, fixed it. There's a model out there. We know the right answer. We know what to do. We just refuse to do it.
I think it's difficult. And allow me to push back a little bit on this, because I see it in a lot of ways. And I remember I started writing an article maybe 5 years ago. It's still in my draft somewhere about what the United States can learn from the world. And I love Asia. It is by far my favorite continent on the planet because I enjoy Asian mastery. In most Asian cultures, mastery is celebrated, where you can make, let's say sushi, for example. You learn how to make one thing for the rest of your life. You spend 50, 60 years mastering this one dish. Here in Bangkok, I've been here 12 years. I have one lady who makes me pad krapao, who's been doing it for 27 years now. The only reason I know that specifically because I talked to her like a year ago specifically about how long she had been doing it. 27 years making one dish. That's all she makes. And she's made a living off doing that. I feel like we used to have this culture back home, this American made, right? Where people were masters at their crafts, where it was celebrated and supported. But through the pursuit of capitalism, of more money, more power, we've gotten away from that. We went into mass production. We started exporting these jobs abroad. I've always said, you cannot blame the corporations or the politicians. You have to look at the people. The corporations and politicians follow people. That's who give them their power. We stopped demanding excellence. We stopped demanding quality. We stopped demanding critical thinking. We stopped. That's on us because it got easier to just go to Walmart and get your groceries, to get your tires changed, to get your air conditioning fluid, to get everything in one place, as opposed to going down to the local hardware store or going to the local mechanic or getting your bread from the Amish country. Like, we stopped that. And people say, oh, these corporations, Walmart can't force me to walk in the door. And I know it's a little bit, it's more complicated than that, but we don't demand it anymore, so they don't do it. The reason it worked in Finland is because the Finnish people demanded it.
Yeah.
The same thing in Germany. After the World War, Germany came back and became the biggest, most powerful country in Europe because they recognized the issues they had. They paid their debt to society, human society, and they tried to move forward. Now, they are not perfect either.
Right.
But the German people demanded it. So my thing is, we as a nation, as Americans, have to look at ourselves and say, okay, am I demanding of my representatives, of my job, of my friends and family to be better? I always say, leave the world better than you found it. I don't tell people what that means. It means whatever you think it means. And when people move with intention, they start to look at the people around them, the institutions around them, and they say, these things need to change if we're going to try to make things better for the future, for our friends, for our family, for ourselves. Earlier you were saying that I brought up that it's about self-preservation for me to try to make the world a better place. You know, we just bombed Iran. Like my friends, like I was literally getting ready for bed last night, and a friend of mine in our group chat sent me a video of the Patriot missiles going to intercept the missiles outside of his apartment building. Like, this is him in IUD in Qatar. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then obviously 30 minutes later, the news broke that everything was happening. And I'm like, what are we doing? What are we allowing to happen? What are we voting for? This is the world that we live in now, where tomorrow somebody who doesn't like what another person said could drop bombs and kill innocent people. This is what we voted for as a nation. We're allowing this to happen. We look at the ICE raids in LA. We as a nation have allowed that to happen. American history being rewritten along political lines in Texas and Florida and the South. We are allowing that to happen. Yeah. And when was the last time you heard about that? So it's okay, well, let's go on to the next story. Let's move on to the next story. And people forget about that. No, these kids are still being taught inaccurate American history. Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water all the way until now.
Crazy.
When was that? What was it? Like, 7 years ago that was exposed to it?
Probably close to a decade. That's a long time.
Nothing changed. So I'm like, it's frustrating when, I can almost understand when you live in the U.S. and you're inundated with all of this stuff. I get in trouble for saying this. Humans do not have the capacity to care about a lot of things at the same time. We don't. We cannot be emotionally invested in so many things. For example, if you sat here for the next hour and told me about your struggle, in the moment, I can empathize. But once that conversation is over, I don't know how much emotional energy I can give to your plight. Then we have to look at global warming. We have to look at famine. We have to look at the industrial military complex. We have to look at economic disparity, inflation costs, fentanyl, like the list of things that we're supposed to care about, that we're taught that we have to care about with our whole heart is ridiculous. People come back to food, family, and faith. That is it. It's that simple. And whatever that means to you, that's how we have to move through the world and hold our representatives accountable, our communities accountable, and ourselves accountable. Otherwise, nothing changes.
I couldn't agree with you more. A couple things about how people get informed. The number one thing that I learned that I want other people to recognize, and I'll just stick with the corporate media, the news stations, their primary motivation isn't to inform. If you think you're watching the news to become an educated citizen, I hate to break the news to you, but that's a false premise. Those companies are companies, and they are for-profit organizations. Their number one objective is to create profit for themselves. They do that through ad revenue. So their objective to get increased higher ad revenue is to keep your eyes glued on the screen. It's not to educate. It's not to better inform. It's to make dollars. So they're going to put on the screen whatever it is they think that you're going to hear and make you keep listening to them to pad their pockets. Again, not to inform a society, a country, the world. I still take in some of that information, but I like some independent sources that aren't controlled by the for-profit entity.
And that's the best part of it. That's probably one of my favorite things about living outside of the U.S. is because I don't have to look at U.S. media. Yeah. I like living in Thailand, and even when I was living in Europe, I had to go out of my way to find it, to get it, because the rest of the world is worried about the rest of the world. They have other things to worry about. And the U.S. is basically in the background or a footnote for a lot of situations. And it is almost, it's like freeing. It's like a relief. I'm like, oh my goodness. So you see things in a different lens, right? When I look at, and I hate to say CNN and Fox News, opposite sides, but abroad, you see kind of a lot more unbiased opinions in their news source reporting on us, because they don't have a dog in that race for the most part in terms of, ad revenues and whatnot. This is why I've always enjoyed BBC, they tend to be more CNN-ish, but like BBC, Al Jazeera, I love Monocle. A lot of people don't know about Monocle magazine. Editor Tyler Brule out of London. They do some phenomenal op-ed pieces. Nikkei in Japan, out of Japan. There's so many amazing sources of news and information that I'm like, guys, you have more options than this. You have more options. I always say this. If you cannot objectively defend your opinion, it's probably not your opinion. And I think that's one thing in America. Once upon a time, you're like, you say something, you're like, oh, okay, what's your source? Where'd you get that from? Like, show me the information or the data behind that. Now people just take things at face value because they got 1,000 clicks on Instagram. It's heartbreaking.
Let's take a quick break from today's episode. If you're enjoying the conversation, take a second to like, follow, or subscribe wherever you're tuning in. We'd really appreciate it. You can also find us on Instagram at Randall Osché. That's RANDALLOSCHE. And check out more at podcast.randallosché.com, including show notes and other resources from today's episode. All right, back to the conversation.
Getting back to like what you said earlier about corporations and politicians are doing what they're doing because we as citizens aren't demanding better. I would agree with that, but I think that, like, to piggyback off what you just said, I don't think people know what they should be demanding. You also mentioned it before, the critical thinking function is just non-existent. Like, that.
But that's our fault, though. That's our fault. You're responsible for what you teach your kids. I'm responsible for what I teach my kids. You're responsible for the people you surround yourself with. I'm responsible for the people I surround myself with. And we can only control what we can control. And I can control how I spend my money. So if I think, Elon Musk is a piece of shit, I'm not going to buy a Tesla or support any of his work or Starlink or none of that stuff. If I think Donald Trump's a liar, I'm not going to listen to him. If I think Walmart is the death of the American dream, I'm not going to shop at Walmart. Right? If I say I support small businesses, I'm going to spend my money at small businesses. If I want to support HBCUs, I'm going to send my son to an HBCU. I think it comes down to every man has to have a code. This is one foundation. And when I say man, I'm talking about humanity. You have to have a set of core values that make you and define you for who you are. The quote is that if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. That's probably one of the dopest quotes of all time because it's so true. It was like, yo, man, Donald Trump can't influence me. You literally can't, because this individual goes against everything that's core to me as a human being. Integrity, service, excellence. That guy goes against all of those tenets of my core identity. So I am entirely responsible for how I move through the world. Now, granted, there are situations that put me in uncomfortable positions where I have to make a choice that I am not happy with, but because of my moral code and my confidence, I have to do that. If I see one guy getting jumped by 3 men in the middle of Bangladesh, I'm like, fuck. I don't know the story. I don't know what's happening, but my moral code and compass says that's not right. So I need to step in and help or break it up or whatnot, right? That is my moral code and my compass. Granted, that guy could have stabbed one of those guy's wives or whatnot. He could have deserved it, but I don't know what I don't know. So in that moment, we're all forced, because everybody's right in hindsight. Everybody would have made a different choice in hindsight. But in the moment, we have to ask ourselves, what are our core values, right? And I'm like, if you can't tell me your 3 core values, you don't have core values. You need to reevaluate your shit. You need to figure out who you are, because you should at least have 3 things that are like, yo, this is non-negotiable. This is a line that I'm not crossing, right? I'm not putting profit over people. People always look at my numbers on social media and wonder how I'm not bigger, right? It's like, oh, you've been doing this so long, how you're not bigger? But you've been doing this so long, how do you make money with such a small following? It's because of my core values. Because I underpromise, I overdeliver. I work with businesses where they are at that moment. For example, if a small startup reaches out to me to do some digital marketing work for them, I'm not going to charge them the same as I would Pepsi. Now, I know a lot of entrepreneurs are going to tell me, oh, you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. Well, you do you and I do me. You run your business the way you do. I do mine the way. This is why I love Ben and Jerry. Like, I love how they put people over profit. I love how they run a business out of character and love and integrity. The Oishii yogurt guy, the Oikos yogurt guy. The same way, when you give a share to your employees and that wealth and that benefit of capitalism, that's what we should be doing. But a lot of people lack core values, not necessarily to their fault. I was lucky enough to have a family that was built on integrity and character. And then I joined the military, where you're forced into accepting some core values in the military. And then traveling around the world, I was exposed to different cultures and how they navigate the practice of their religion, how they take care of their families, how they build community, how they welcome me as foreigners. I'm a Romanian godfather to little Romanian twins in Slobozia, Romania. I met their dad on a press trip on a mountain in northern Romania. We just became really close friends, best friends to this day, and he asked me to be godfather of his son, one of the twins. And I was the only black guy in this small Romanian town during the christening. And they thought I was a big bodyguard nanny for the twins as I'm pushing the stroller. And it's stories like those I love telling, because I'm like, we forget about the humanity in things. We forget that on the other side of that mean comment is a human being. We forget the families and the friends that look at us as an example. Right? I've got little nieces and nephews. I'm the cool uncle that lives overseas that they don't get to see often, but they know I'm doing something really, really cool. And I'm like, we're the unks now. That's me and you. We're uncles now. We're unks. We're OGs in our communities now. So this next generation coming up, they look at us. And again, could I be making 6-7 figures? Yeah, sure. But at what cost? At what price? And I'm like, I can't take it with me. I make more than enough money to live a very, very comfortable life. I have family, I have friends, I'm loved. I love what I do. I help as many people as I can. I get these amazing experiences around the world. For me, all of that is because I've always carried myself with core values, even to my detriment, but overall to my benefit.
Yeah. I think so many people have fallen victim to like false information or politicians lying because they don't have their own set of core values, because like they just go, politician will say whatever the politician wants to say to win the news cycle. And then people, they don't pressure check that against what their core values are. So their stance is constantly changing when the politician's stance is constantly changing. And it's unfortunate.
It's a vicious cycle. Yeah. Vicious cycle. My number one thing for choosing a politician, like above all else, is this person a good person? Right. Like, I don't give a damn what their policies are yet. We can talk about that after. Do I feel like this person's going to take care of my grandmother or my sister or my wife or my friend or me if some shit went down? Do I trust this individual to do that? Are they a good person? If the answer is no, they will not get my vote. I don't give a damn what policies they say.
Yeah, I agree. When Donald Trump was elected to his first term, I was managing an office of financial advisors at the time. So I was an authority figure. I was the boss. And so I was being diplomatic and cautious with what I would say in front of people. But like in an objective corporate environment in America, Donald Trump wouldn't last a day with the words that come out of his mouth. He would be suspended immediately. There would be a HR review, and then he would be terminated and given a severance, period. So I would just say I wouldn't hire, this is during his first term, I wouldn't hire him to answer our phones. Like, he's not competent to answer the telephone in our office, to
do the sit at a table, have a drink with an individual like him.
Right.
And it's not just him, right? It really is not just him. People like that, they're not real. Like, they don't exist in most real world communities. And if they do, they're quickly ostracized and checked. That is the perfect example of somebody who's never got punched in the face by life. That's what happens. It's like, hey, I wonder what happens is Donald Trump. That's what happens when you've grown through life where there's never been anybody to check you. If people take anything away from this, who is going through life where they feel like they're lost, they don't have any friends, they have no code, they don't know a direction in life, find people who will check you. Find people who will call you out. If you don't have a friend or somebody who will call you, man, let me tell you about this. I just finished renovations on my house. I live in Thailand. I have a forest behind my house. So traditional Thai houses are just relatively open. You might have seen it on social media where people have Komodo dragons, monitor lizards in their house, snakes coming in through the toilets. That's Thailand. That's living in Bangkok, right? I have a forest. So throughout the renovation project, little critters would get in my house. And this damn rat got into my house. And I'm walking down the street with one of my best friends from Germany. He comes in, we're just walking, and we're talking about it. I was like, God, I'm trying to find a way to stop this rat. And he goes, yeah, it's because your house is too damn dirty. You need to clean it. And like, even though it's untrue, I love the fact that my friend would say that to me. He would like, hey, like, and I look like, he's like, I'm just, like, I know it's not that, but I love that I have a friend that will call me out, right? You know, when I go to my friends about relationship advice, they'll say, hey, what are you doing? Like, if she feels this way, what did you do to make her feel like this? Have you talked to her? I am a better man now because I have friends that will check me. I have colleagues that'll call me out. And that's partially because of the military. Because in the military has a simple structure. Your job at all times is to train your replacement. So if you care about your job, you care about your organization, you want to make that person the best version of them that they can be. And your supervisor is doing the same thing to you. So there's always somebody above you and somebody below you. And this is mentorship. And this is what I still say to this day. You got to find people that'll check you. That is your mentor, right? And to reinforce those skills, you have to have a mentee, somebody that you care about, somebody whose growth that you care about. And people generally think that that's your child. Doesn't have to be your kid. It could be a nephew, niece. It could be a kid that lives down the street. It could be somebody at your job. You have to find a mentee that you care about so you can constantly audit your beliefs. Because this new generation my mentees I'm 42. My mentees are all in their 20s and they come through a different world. They see the world very differently than we do. And interacting with them, trying to give them knowledge and getting something back from them, it's like, well, Eric, that doesn't work now because we have this and this and this. We don't have to do that anymore because we have ChatGPT that can do this and this and this. And then my mentor is like, hey, what do you think about this? What the hell is ChatGPT? You know?
Yeah.
So it's like my mentor he's 81 now. So it's this duality. If you have no mentor structure, if you have nobody to check you, you're going to remain lost. And I think we have to push people to find those around them that make them better, the best versions of themselves. That's easier said than done, of course, but I think it's more than worth the effort.
Yeah, no, as you were talking, you can even pay for this, right? Like good therapists, right, will check you. They'll redirect you when you're, not looking at things objectively. Or I've had on the podcast, I hired an executive coach years ago, Don Asher. And, you can say, I'm thinking about it this way. And Don will say, well, you're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. Mm-hmm. But like, as you were talking, I guess Don would be my mentor, right? My executive coach. Mm-hmm. But then because of Don's guidance and his help, I was like, oh, I can go out and help coach other people. And then I started to coach people, and I was amazed at how helping others reinforced those philosophies in me. So when I'm doing my work and I'm thinking through a situation or a challenge, I'm like, what would you tell XYZ person? And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't put up with this. Like, I would check them and tell them they need to put that down. They need to work on this thing.
It's crazy powerful. It's crazy, right? And it shifts it. It's like, wait a minute. I was like, oh, okay. It helps you develop them as well. Because again, our mentors aren't always right. It's an amalgamation of our perspective, our mentors, and our mentees. It's the Trinity. And I always say life is that Trinity. You have to find your Trinity. You notice earlier I said you need to have 3 core values. 3, it's the Trinity. Like you got to always go when it comes to health is physical, mental, and financial. The Trinity. Go back to the Trinity system. And I think I'm going to write this down one day and like present it to the world. This is what's helped me, because the great thing about a Trinity, it is small enough. It's 3 sides. It's small enough for you to remember and reinforce. And when one of those things get knocked out and one of those things gets knocked out, it all falls. Even though it's so small, you lose one side of a Trinity, it's down. So trying to get back to reinforcing it is significantly less trouble, it's less painful, and it's easy to see the results. So I think, the beautiful thing about mentor-mentee Trinity, it helps you become the best version of yourself by absorbing information from the outside and modifying that to relate to other people. It's a wonderful strategy.
Yeah, I love that. Shifting gears a little bit here. We mentioned cost of living. You mentioned it earlier. I haven't traveled as much as you. I think one of your last YouTube videos, you've been to like 94 countries.
Yeah, 95.
So 95 countries at this point. But I've been exposed to Europe mostly, well, I guess Caribbean too. But traveling to those countries definitely changed, not say enhance my perspective, broaden my horizons, that like I now think through things differently. And I read a book, it's called Nomad Capitalist. The author's from Cleveland, I think. Mm-hmm. But he says, I forget his name, but he says in the book, go to where you're treated best. Yeah. And I recognized after being other places for probably various reasons, but for the lifestyle I want to live, it's not going to be cultivated here in the United States. Like I know that now. I didn't know that before, but I've been exposed to different inputs. Those different inputs told me we need to make a move here. But one of those variables is cost of living. You said earlier, if you make around $35,000 a year, you're in the top 1% of like income earners in the world. You can't do anything in the United States with making $35,000. And if there's any global listeners for this, I do see foreigners coming into the United States thinking it's all rainbows and butterflies. I want to make all this money, but there's an exchange there. Like you got to pay for a place to stay, which is going to be expensive. Cost of living is going to be
just
a lot.
Transportation,
like, transportation, like there's no public transportation, not even in large metro areas. There's a couple things that are just really expensive right off the bat. Place to stay, roof over your head, and transportation. You either gotta buy a car, expensive, pay for insurance, expensive, pay for a ride share, expensive, because there's no public transportation. So cost of living, maybe just talk a little bit about what your experience of cost of living outside of the United States has been, and maybe if you want to go specifically to Bangkok and how that works for you.
So, in the overall, the cost of living abroad just is, compared to the States, is, man, I like to try to be a contrarian, man. I try to find a way to make us look good, but we don't in any way, shape, or form, man. It's sad because every year it gets worse. Europe's not that much better now. Like, it's better, but it ain't as much better as it used to be, right. Especially Western Europe. Central Eastern Europe is still doable, but Western Europe is just as bad as in the States in terms of inflation and income. I think one of the biggest things is, in America, we have this anti-socialist rhetoric when we refuse to acknowledge the goods and the bads with so many things, right? But it was so often capitalism is this, we got democracy, no socialism. And I'm like, no, socialism is the foundation of humanity. There are some things, if we're going to act like there are some things that are human rights, right? And I've always said human rights are not real. They're political buzzwords. Human rights only exist when there's force behind them. So if you don't have any power or force to enforce said rights, they're not real. They're just suggestions. And the U.S. is seeing that when you say, people should have a right to clean water. Not really. Not according to the U.S. government. People should have a right to education. You got a right to whatever education we say you should have.
Yeah, we tell you.
Right? If you want to become a doctor and help people, you're going to have to go into debt for 6 figures. And it's not that way. My best friend's wife is a doctor. One of the most brilliant women I ever met. Speaks like 6 languages. She has her doctorate from Romania, which was free. And then she went to Sweden, where, she's being paid significantly more, and went to Sweden, learned Swedish, took the exam, and then became a doctor in Sweden. You see this around the world where people are given free education, free healthcare, where governments subsidize things like rice, wheat, corn, certain kind of cattle, where the government understands that we have to ensure that people are educated, healthy. When you can go to a hospital because you broke your leg and you're not in debt for the rest of your life, that is quality of life. We talk about the cost of living, but we don't talk about quality of life. Everybody says cost of living, but not quality of life. The question is, I make under six figures now. I make under six figures. Before COVID, I made well over six figures. Under six figures, I am in a position where I can pretty much live anywhere in the world that I want, except for the United States of America. Because the amount of money I make in the U.S. would essentially be just eaten up in the States. But in Thailand, I am considered wealthy. When out here, people, I believe it's something like 500 baht an hour minimum wage or a day. It's low. Like, I'll have to look it up. I can't remember. It is low. What Thai people make is low. But they're some of the kindest, most welcoming people on the planet. There's 100% employment here. You don't see a lot of beggars on the street. You don't see a lot of drug addicts here. People are fed. They're happy. The community is amazing. That's why they call it the land of smiles. That's very real. It's because the government understands that if the people are taken care of, they have less work to do as a government. If people are healthy and happy, they don't have to deal with it. In the U.S., we're dealing with it in Skid Row and homelessness and inflation and, in crime and mass shootings. All of these things come into play when you talk about, for me, cost of living.
Yeah.
Because cost of living and quality of life are very similar. When I go out of my house, I never have to worry about somebody shooting me in the ass for my shoes. I don't have to worry about the police harassing me. I don't have to worry about the price of eggs. The public transportation from one side of the city into the center of the city costs $2 tops. It's capped at 62 baht, which is about $2. That's the cap. People are going to say, oh, well, you're a Westerner, you're a foreigner. It's different for you. Okay. You know what the Thai government did? They said, okay, for Thai nationals, for locals, it's 20 baht cap. So Thais pay 20 baht. And those of us who are here because of social economic privilege pay 62 baht. I'm like, bravo. Fair. Good. More than fair. More than fair. Absolutely how it should be. I see the same thing in Romania. I see it in South Africa. I see it in Chile. I see it around the world where the governments and communities and people understand that if we ensure the health and well-being of our people, it will benefit us all. And it feels like the U.S. is built for corporations to do whatever the hell they want. And it's nothing but at the expense of the American people. So my advice to you is get out as soon as you can, my friend, while you still can.
I'm working on it.
Be broke. And I'm like, be broke abroad, guys. I'm telling you, find a job where you can make $35,000 a year online, doing whatever, and move. Just leave. And once you get overseas, you're going to finally see, I don't have to worry about healthcare. I don't have to worry about buying a car and driving around. I don't have to worry about the cost of food. And when you take those things away, all of a sudden you have a lot more money to do the things that you love and you care about.
Yeah. Just like for perspective. So I'm working to get my visa for Portugal, Nomad visa for Portugal. One of the steps you have to take is to have health insurance, right? Yeah. So I haven't purchased it yet because I don't want to pay for something I don't need, but I know the plan I'm going to get and why I'm going to get the plan, because the visa application requires you to have health insurance. Now, I just left a job to start a new job. In the United States, we have COBRA insurance. COBRA insurance allows your employer-sponsored insurance plan, but as an individual for like a period of time, but you have to pay for 100% out of pocket. So while at my former employer, it was maybe like $100 every 2 weeks that I would pay for all my insurance. So I get this COBRA packet in the mail when I leave, giving me the opportunity, right? How grateful like I am for that, to buy the COBRA insurance. It's $1,000, $1,000 to continue the insurance as an individual. Comparing a month. It's happened to me twice. The last two jobs I left, one was like $1,000, the other one was like $800. Now to get my insurance to apply for my visa in Portugal, $80 a month. And there's 3 tiers. There's like a C tier, B tier, and an A tier. That's $80 for the B tier, the second best plan that fits my needs.
Base level, I pay $216 a year for my expat insurance here.
Yeah.
$216.
Crazy.
That's base if anything goes wrong. Now, I always, because I power lift, I take supplements, I do all these things. So I'm sexually active. I get my blood work done every 6 months. I do all these extra tests, and I pay out of pocket for those tests. A full blood workup here in Bangkok costs me around 5,000 baht, which is about 175 US. That's full blood panels, doctor consultation, everything. And it's done in like a day. We can literally trace it back to healthcare.
Yeah.
You just give everybody healthcare, and it changes the entire landscape of American society. That one thing, free healthcare or free education, and it wipes out so much debt, so much frustration, so much pain, so much wasted income for so many people. It would literally change the direction of our country for the better.
Yeah. I think America is the only developed nation where you can go bankrupt because of a medical emergency.
Yeah, it's wild to me, man. I've been around a lot. I remember I got laughed at. I went to go get a HIV test because I'm very strict on my testing schedule. I took a last minute assignment. I was coming due, and I happened to be in London. And I say, you can get a test everywhere, right? I just need to get it done. And I go in to the doctor, take my blood draw, and I'm like, oh, where do I go pay? And she's like, what do you mean pay? And I was like, I have to pay for this, right? And she's like, no. I was like, oh, but it's a non-emergency. I thought they only covered emergencies free. It was like, no, it's just put down your name and your passport number and it's free. I was blown away, and we ended up having like a 30-minute conversation just like this about the state of healthcare in America. And for people abroad, they just don't understand it because they've grown up in a world where the government has been clear about this is a fundamental right of our people, and we will provide it to the best of our ability. It ain't perfect, but it's better than what a lot of us have.
Great conversation, man. I could talk to you for hours. A couple questions I like to ask all my guests. We talked about like reading a few books you name dropped earlier. Again, I'm pro education. I get a little prickly around tuition, colleges, and that world. It can be used for good or evil. But I've, in my adult life, become like an avid reader. And, I try to parrot the lessons I've learned from those to others. Like we talked a little bit earlier about Adam Grant's book. But what's maybe one or two of the most influential books you've ever read?
I think, there's one I read recently called We Need to Talk. Her name is Celeste Headley. And basically it's a book about how to have those difficult conversations, which I think is very important now. We're not comfortable with being uncomfortable anymore.
Right.
And sometimes you have to be uncomfortable in these uncomfortable situations to grow, right? Nobody wants to go to the gym and beat their body up. But if you want big muscles, that's what you got to do. It's the same thing with anything, with emotional intelligence, with politics, with community, with family. You have to have these tough conversations. So I think that's one really good one. We Need to Talk. Let's see, Principle-Centered Leadership. That's Stephen Covey, if I recall. 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene. I actually love that. People always think it's some business thing. Like, no, it's a very good book just for life. Like, if you look through 48 Laws of Power, that's a great book for just being a good and smart person. Right. And I think Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I believe everybody should read that book. While it's presented from a military perspective, and a lot of people have issues with stoicism, I truly believe that it is probably one of the best books that you can read if you're having trouble with managing your emotional reaction to difficult situations. And there's a lot of difficult situations. And I think with the proliferation of social media in everybody's life, which feeds off emotion, social media feeds off emotion, negative emotion to be specific. I believe that, if you're going to operate in that space of social media, we need to do it with armor on. And I think having these stoic principles, having these skills, this ability to absorb information in a non-personal way, understanding how you might have contributed to an issue, understanding how your effort can yield certain results, both positive and negative. I think that gives you an opportunity to navigate these difficult spaces better. And I think that's what I've taken away from all of these books. It's allowed me to cultivate a community around myself that doesn't only challenge me, but uplifts me. And it at times protects me. But that came from being steadfast in many ways, being a rock in many ways, being an immovable object on certain things. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier about the Trinity, right? All these books, they reinforce my Trinity, right? And sometimes my Trinity has to change depending on the circumstances. Your Trinity is not set in stone. It's not a fixed point in life. It is just something that you use to go back to allow you to make better choices. And once you audit that, which you should be doing constantly, you can have opportunity to adjust and change. I remember you had a question about failure. And for me, I say you have to fail daily. I fail every single day. Sometimes really, really big, but sometimes small. For example, I need to become more fluent in Thai. My Thai is very conversational, but I keep finding myself in business environments where the other person does not speak enough English and I don't speak enough Thai where we can have a business conversation. So I challenge myself to learn better Thai. I am terrible at it now. Like, it is very difficult because it's a tonal language. And I don't hear the tones very well from old injury. So it's very difficult for me. So every day I'm failing at that. But it's making me a better version of myself, a better citizen, a better local here, a better expat. So I think, those books for me are all great books for anybody who's looking for kind of a path and a way to kind of reinforce their beliefs.
Yeah, excellent. And you mentioned earlier, like, what sort of drives you is to be a hero to your 13-year-old self. I think that's how you phrased it. So what would be one piece of advice that you would give that 13-year-old now based on what you know?
Stick to your morals. And, luckily I have, and that was instilled in me. I think we can go back in time and say, invest in Apple or something like that. But I think what I would continue to say is, prioritize your health above all, because if you're not good, nobody else is good. And you can't protect people if you can't protect yourself. And when I talk about health, I'll talk about the Trinity: physical, mental, and financial. You have to prioritize your health first, above all else, above your friends, above your family, above your communities. You have to prioritize you, because if you don't have the health to help, then everybody's losing, right?
Yeah.
It is your responsibility as somebody with broad shoulders, as my godfather used to say. God gave you broad shoulders to carry the weight. So as somebody with broad shoulders, you have to accept that hardship of taking care of your health above all else. I would tell him to look at things from a perspective of, is this going to matter in 5 years? Is this thing you're so pissed off about, you're about to throw your life away over, does this matter in 5 years? The answer 99.9% is no. So it could have stopped me from getting myself in a lot of trouble early on. But, sometimes, again, I would also say, hey, sometimes bad choices are good choices, because it teaches you a lesson, right?
And last question here is, you've mentioned that, you lift, you take care of yourself, you take supplements, but maybe, is there anything that you do on a daily basis? Certain bits, I journal, I like to exercise as well, I like to eat clean, I like to read. I'm trying to learn Portuguese, so I have an app, and I spend at least 5 minutes a day on the app, and those are just sort of my daily non-negotiables that if I hit those, it's going to make everything else better for the day, because it sets me on the right path. And I get those things done early in the morning, which I don't always do, try my best to, it's going to be a productive day because I've gotten rolling with those things, right? And a little bit goes a long way. You tell yourself to read for 15 minutes every day, you're going to go through a lot of books. You're going to spend 5 minutes a day on learning Portuguese, you're going to learn a lot of words, right? If you do it consistently. But is there any habits or routines you have on a daily basis that help set you up for success?
I smoke a lot of weed. It's legal here.
Yeah.
So I smoke a lot enough. I do. But, I think it's really the gym. It really is the gym. And I know it's a cliche answer, but for me, I look at the gym. Nobody's harder on me than me. And when I train myself. I'm not going through the motions. I am a tough trainer. I'm a very tough trainer, and I'm very tough on myself. And if I can make it through my workout, the day is gravy after that. I literally got up. I was up and training before I came here. It's 10:30 a.m. here. We had 9 a.m. So I was like, well, I got to definitely be in the gym by 6:30. I'm in the gym. I try to be in the gym every day before 9 a.m. if I've got something to do or not. But on a normal day, I'm in the gym before 7, because the rest of the day is downhill after that. Everyone's, oh, well, you're in shape. I'm like, guys, I'm in shape because I work out. This is why I'm in such great shape at 42. It's because I train, I eat properly, I meal prep, I live an active life. starting your day with physical fitness, especially people who say, oh, I have to be at work at 9. Okay, then you should be at the gym at 6. That's just it. You go to bed at 10 and you're up at 5:30. You have a breakfast, walking out the door. You're in the gym at 6. You work out for 45 minutes. It doesn't need to be this big, magnificent 3-hour training. 45 minutes is all you need. For me, I'll likely do about an hour 15 because I'm old. I've got to stretch a lot longer. Things get a lot tighter after you're 35. So I do a 30-minute calisthenics. I do a warm-up. I do a lot of yoga, Pilates, stretching, and to get my body warmed up, then I go into my lifting routine. So 2 days a week, I'm powerlifting. 2 days a week, I'm training for hypertrophy. And then 1 day a week, I'm just doing something active, just fun, out and about, hikes, going for runs, playing paddle, pickleball, just random things. Because this is one thing you can control. You can control your body. It's all yours. Nobody else has that power over you. You can control your health and your fitness. If you're overweight, if you're sluggish, if you're slow, working out is going to make it better, guys. And I do that, and it breaks my heart because I feel like in the U.S., even though there's this big explosion of gym culture, I think a lot of people are missing the benefits of it. So many people are going just for the aesthetics of it. Like, I want to wash more abs, and I want a bigger booty, and I want to be able to live the life I want to live until I'm 80. I work out so I can eat anything that I want. I work out so if somebody threatens me, I can physically defend myself. I work out so I can climb that beautiful mountain in Peru. Physical fitness helps you in every single aspect of your life, even if it's something small like doing Zumba in the park. That is the one non-negotiable for me for 4 to 5 days a week is I start my day with some kind of physical activity.
Yeah, I think it really, for me, it changes how I show up in the world, like mentally and physically. It gives me an edge that I don't have when I'm not in shape. And it's, I lift, I run, and like I can tell there's the in shape version of me and the not in shape version of me. And the world deserves the version of me that is in shape.
Yeah. Well, you deserve it.
Right. Yeah.
Like you deserve it above all else. We have a responsibility to be the very best versions of ourselves for us, because future of us is going to be pissed. Like future me is like future me because I do it now. I look back, I'm 42 now. I look back at 32 like, oh, come on, man. Why didn't you? Like, or something will come up. I'm like, why didn't I do that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
It really is. You owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself. And it really, not only that, but it's community. Like I train jujitsu. I've been training jujitsu for over 20 years now. I have not found a community in the world that is more welcoming and kind than jujitsu practitioners. Globally, anywhere. Wait till you get to Portugal. People roll in Portugal because a lot of Brazilians live there. Right. So Portugal has a very deep, a beautiful BJJ community. And you can show up having not rolled one day in your life and you have a room full of friends. Not only friends, but people who actually care about your growth and your development. They're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to beat you. They're trying to help you grow, because that's the community that we've all built, we've come up in. And somebody who's not there to help you grow and help you learn and help you work, they're probably not going to be there that long. So find that community. And it's the same, people talk shit about CrossFitters and it's calling it a cult. No, it's a community. That's what a community looks like. Most people just don't know what that looks like anymore. That's what a community is.
Especially in the United States.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic. Before we wrap up here today, Erick, appreciate your time so much. It's been a great conversation. Where can the listeners go find you at? I'm Minority Nomad everywhere. Mainly, if you want to contact me directly about a question or anything, Instagram, I answer that all the time, like every single day. This is my favorite app, Instagram. But you can also find me on YouTube, which I'll be doing a lot more content on YouTube. And my website, I'll be starting to do 3 to 4 writings a week. So I'm getting myself back into muscle memory of just writing again. So I'm trying to write every day. I want to press publish 3 to 4 times a week. So if you want to reach me directly, Instagram. If you want to read more of my work, it's going to be on my website, minoritynomad.com, or hear me speak like this, it'll be on YouTube. Excellent. Erick Prince, thank you for the conversation. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and your journey and your experience with us. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, brother. Man, you let me know when you get to Portugal, man. I'm there quite often, so. Yeah.
And that wraps up today's conversation on the Randall Osché Podcast. Thanks again to our guest for sharing their time, knowledge, and lessons with us. If the episode brought you any value, the best way to support the show is to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform. That helps us reach more people like you. You can also visit podcast.randallosché.com for blog posts, full transcripts, and other episode resources. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep moving forward.